Hello everyone, how you guys doing? Welcome back to the official Nick Walsh TV channel. We are back. It's another week and we're about to play more Spinning Goes. I hope you guys are well. I hope you guys had a fantastic weekend. There was a small chance I was going to do a stream on Friday, but as I said, I was doing some traveling. I was doing some commentary for the Hippodrome as well. Did actually end up playing in the Hippodrome last Friday as well on the stream. If you guys want a laugh, go ahead and give it a look. I actually think I played okay in the end, but surprise finish, and it was a tough spot, so it's all good. But anyway, hope you guys are good. Welcome back. We're gonna play some Spinning Goes today. We're gonna do the normal thing. We're going to play some games, we're gonna talk some strategy, and then we're also going to mark some hands for review, and we'll do a little review at the end of today's stream as well. Apologies for the slightly later than usual situation. I had a builder coming in today. He was supposed to arrive at around midday, 12:30, something like that. He didn't arrive until later. He's been and gone. It's all sorted out now. The house is safe, and now we can do our stream. Get your questions and your comments in the chat as per usual. Keep me company, and let's get into our games. So, before we get started, graph first. Let me clean this up a little bit. There we go. So as you can see, we're making plenty of progress. This is since the 19th of the 6th, 2025. Again, we're still not at a Chippy V that I feel satisfied with. However, what we were looking at, this is why this was open, what we were looking at last time was how little I've been winning at Showdown since the start of this year. So if we filter for this year, you guys can see that essentially since the start of the year, we have only really earned about 10,000 chips at Showdown, which is very unusual, especially from a player who is traditionally less of a red line player. And in fact, my red line has been flat and slightly winning over the course of the year. So there's definitely a distribution thing going on here. We're going to just work on this. We're going to play through it. No big deal. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Hello, Tom. Hello, Raksha. Hello, Big Deal O'Neill. Hello, Murphy. Good to see you. Murphy loves the loading screen. It's controversial. I'm looking a bit Cal Kestis. Who the hell is Cal Kestis? Cal Kestis. Cal Kestis is the force-sensitive human male becoming a Jedi. I see what you're saying about the hair a little bit. Yeah, that was unintentional. I'll take it. I can be a Jedi. That's fine. Hello, Tony, over on YouTube as well, by the way. Good to see you, buddy. Right. Let's get into our first game. I got to do some social media really quick. I was distracted by the... Oh, did I actually open this properly, guys? Yeah. Sorry. This is the graph that we were discussing. I'm pretty sure you guys just saw this. I'm not sure. We were talking about Showdown, non-Showdown. Well, if you missed it, there it is anyway. Let's go ahead and get across to our first game, and then what we'll do is I'll do some social really quick. I was just doing it, and then the guy left, and then I was like, okay, give me a second. Okay, spin and go. All right, bear with, guys. Right. Thank you for your patience, everybody. Yeah, the hair is... So I didn't go to I went to my usual barbers, but not my usual barber because I had to get it done just before Monte Carlo. And my usual barber kind of knows that I wear my hair kind of messy, but like, also... I wear my hair kind of messy, but also I don't like long in the front, you know, not like, so, I don't know. But the guy that cut it, he did a pretty good job, but it was it was longer in the front than in the back, and now it's grown out and it just looks crazy. Trapping nines. Alrighty then, let's go. Hello, John Edwards. All right, unlucky. Next game. Tony says Nick had the builders in. Was that a euphemism? It was not. No, just your plain old builders. In fact, he was a plumber, I believe, which also could be a euphemism, I'm sure. Right. Okay, that's it. Okay. No, just normal builders. Yeah. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do this one. Pocket fives, baby. All right. No. 2 aggro. 2 aggro. Interesting. Is it better to get more in now? Probably. Interesting. 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 We can just shove 10-7. Let's sneak in a little limp instead. The mistake we made there was probably just shove the 10-7 at 9 in the 2x multiplier. Okay, that was a bit of a roller coaster. That was just a bit of a roller coaster, eh? Okay, next game. Okay, so we are currently hovering around a 9 chip EV, which again is not anywhere near good enough in my book. We'll be pretty happy if we could get somewhere near 20. But as I said, it is difficult to have the kind of win rates that we expect when we are winning so little at Showdown. Quite shocking, actually. I never turn on the blue line just because I anticipate it's usually going to be, good. That's what supported us for so long. But our red line improves and our blue line just goes through the floor. It's kind of weird. Tom thinks we should try and hit a huge multi today. That would be nice. All right, so how do we proceed here? Let's take a check here. Let's take another check. Let's check Call the River. And then a deuce. Yeah, very clear call here. I'd say Queen 8 is a very good push as well. No good in the all-in department, but a good game nonetheless. Carry on, carry on. As if nothing really matters. All right, 1, 2, 5, baby. $125 and 2 regs. McCoy's my boy says I hit a $1,250 spin today. I feel like my grind is over for the day. I mean, go with your heart, but that's pretty cool. Congrats on the big hit, man. That's like 100 times bigger than the spin and go that we're playing here. Maybe even 10. Tony says, any chance of you ever doing a 6-max hyper sit and go challenge, etc.? I mean, I haven't looked in that lobby for ages, mate, but as far as I understand it, it's not really a thing anymore, right? I mean, sit and go. All. I guess we kind of like keep our range weak here and check turn. I mean, obviously leading the turn is fine, but something like this. We could probably even check raise this river. They will still have kings that are going to value bet. We've obviously rivered a bigger two pair like ace, king, king, queen, king, jack. I don't really see why we missed this one. Okay. So buy-in all, speed all, format all, turn off that all. Let me take a look here for you, Tony. So format all, game size, single table. Let's turn off satellites, turn off 50/50s. Let's just turn on regular. Regular. Regular is good. Let's take out. I can do a custom one. From 6 to 6. Yeah, Tony, it's lobbies are very quiet in that department. %41 equity is totally fine with me. All right, 7-4 marked for review. I'm about 99.9% sure that was the move. I mean, we lose almost nothing in equity there, obviously. Sadly, the only higher spin on my stars is 1,250 to 250K, so hit the second highest, which is cool. Yeah, man. I mean, we gotta take them where we can get them. Tony, honestly, I would love to go back and do like a 6 max regular hyper spin and go kind of thing. It's just the sit and goes just aren't that busy anymore, right? In general. I mean, I was thinking about doing the heads up thing for a while as well. Ended up encountering a lot of the same folks as you'd expect. Not great for a challenge. Once we hit this 10, it's going to be hard to fold. This is a bit of a problematic spot in general, just because our opponent is technically meant to shove a fair amount of their aces here pre-flop. So if they barrel twice here, we kind of really can't give them too much credit. even though they will have very strong hands. And they can also just value bet queens, jacks, kings as well. Even some better 10x. We're just going to do this and hope for the best. So we started this at... Yeah, I mean, we're starting to get to the territory where even some of the weaker aces have to push pre-flop. Honestly, like I said, the queens probably need to go for 3 streets there. We could look that one up as well, but that's a really tough one in particular, just because our opponents will have lots of bluffs. They won't have as much value as you think, and the value they have is extremely strong. Tony says, feels bad, sit and goes, need more love. I mean, I don't know if it's for love, mate. I mean, I think I know very, very few people who won't tell you that they used to play loads of sit and goes, you know? I'm not exactly sure. Not exactly sure what changed, but they just like ended up not being played as much. Double gut shot on the turn. Ooh. Double gut shot on the turn missed. And maybe one of the worst rivers in the deck. Unknown player. Very annoying. Very annoying. Let's do this one. McCoy says, I know you that use hand to note for hand replayer. Is the reason that you don't use a HUD, is it not worth the advantage playing against non-regs? So there's a couple things that go into it, McCoy, but generally speaking, I find that it's quite distracting because spin and go HUDs tend to be like quite complicated. So for me personally, it's like, hey, thank you very much for the resub, Dunbar. Appreciate you, man. Right, how much did we push here? 7 big blinds. All right, let's mark this one for review as well. I think that might have been a little bit too wide. I think that was, I'm trying to play faster in the 2x multipliers, but I think Jack 6 was a bit too wide. So let me answer this question really quick. So McCoy knows this because he's a reg, but I do have the tools to activate a heads-up display. I just don't usually play with it. The heads-up display that I do run is a randomizer, just that literally shows me a random number at each decision point between 0 and 1 and 100. So nothing fancy, and also I just want to know how many hands I've played with a player. I would say that generally speaking, if you're playing a very reg-heavy field, the way that you will play against those guys will be very similar to the way that you approach the game yourself. Now, if you are having a lot of trouble with one particular guy and you've played a lot of hands with him, obviously you could study his stats and try and find out where his game is weakest, and you can try and punish that. I mean, that's obviously the name of the game. But I would say that generally a lot of the regs that I play against, especially in spin and goes, are just going to be like rock solid in most departments. So it's kind of more of a distraction, and I think a lot of times I start to level myself into more and more complicated situations than they need to be, right? Like when I'm just playing in flow and, you know, feeling it out against those guys, I think I do better. Against the unknown players, because you haven't played many hands, I find that it's kind of a distraction because they're trying to provide you with stats, but you don't necessarily have all the right filters on to filter out the stuff that's only ever had like one frequency. So I think that the HUD that I do have in my in-hand to note, I'm pretty sure that the filters are built in so that it won't show you numbers until you have a certain number of sample size. But again, it just feels like a bit of a distraction. I guess that's really the long the long, boring answer. The short answer is basically that I find it a distraction, to be honest, and I play better without. In the event that I was playing much higher and I was playing against an even more reg heavy field, there is a fair argument that I should just be keeping it off and then taking more specific notes away from the table so it doesn't distract me, right? So once you've played a bunch with one particular player, you can maybe go ahead and take a look at their frequencies and just try and figure it out like away from the table and try and put together a bit of a game plan. Something like that. Thank you very much, Raksha, and thank you for the on-screen celebration as well, Tom. Good morning, Matt. Good to see you. How are you doing today, mate? I'm going to check the ace-5 push, but I'm pretty sure this is GTO as well. This might not even be an acceleration for the 2x multiplier. Sorry, guys, I'm just taking a note on this one. Yeah. Okay. Let's just keep going, guys. We're running pretty bad today so far. Thank you for the on-screen celebration, Tom and Raksha. Appreciate you guys. Hello, Jamie in the chat. Good to see you. How you doing today? I'm all right, buddy. I feel good. I actually was going to go to the gym earlier today, and then I left it a little bit too late because I forgot that we had builders coming in. Thank you for the cheer, Tom. Appreciate it. So, yeah, I'm good. I was actually going to hit the gym this morning, and then I kind of, I didn't forget. I actually knew. Then Ruth reminded me that I didn't want to cut it too fine going to the gym because we had this builder coming in. And actually, it turns out it would have been totally fine because he came really late. He came within his window, to be fair. He wasn't like, late. Let's just go for the 4 here on the turn. Really, really, really good. Really good spot. Yeah. Jack 9 of diamonds would be fun. But yeah, I'm good. So Jamie came and joined us for a show this Sunday. It was a lot of fun. Thank you for coming out again, buddy. I really had a nice time. No, we're not calling a shove. Pure Gill says, yo, the mascot is here. The mascot is here. Send the run good. Thank you, mate. We need some of that. I think I just lucked into a good situation with my player pool. I have... this actually might be slightly better. gonna give Moors a little bit of rope. Nice. I have players with enough volume to see that they have 100% VPIP on the button or 3.5 raise. Feel like I would be lost without the HUD because I am like an inverse pull, right? Yes, no, like that's definitely the case as well. As soon as your pull becomes very, very variable, but they are also high volume, then obviously I think it's just more powerful. But yeah, just in general, like, you know, for most of my career, it's not that I've never had one, I've never turned it on or whatever, but like, you know, it's just, I would always find, I would use it for a little bit. I would kind of remind myself of what I was looking out for, like what I was feeling for in the game. And then it would just become a bit too much of a distraction, or I'd start to rely on it too much where, not rely on it like, oh, I need this now, but rely on it like I'm starting to make too many decisions as a result of the numbers and not just going with my gut. And, you know, for most of my career, have managed to be sort of in the higher end of possible win rates. Okay. But I hear what you're saying for sure. Pure Gill says, if you ever go to the gym on the marina, I could show you my workout and see how you cope. Nah, I'm good. Jamie is asking which gym do I go to. So I'm a member of the health club at the Grand Hotel, and they have a gym and they have a sauna and a spa and a steam room and a pool and a hot tub and all that stuff. So it's all baked into one membership. Me and Ruth got off to a really good start this year gymming, and then I got quite sick on 2 occasions. I got sick just before Paris and then after EPT Paris, and it really knocked me off my game a little bit, and I've been struggling to get back in there, but Ruthie has been smashing it out the park. Of course, Jamie, yeah. We'll get you out again, mate. That was good fun. Thank you for your contributions to the squad. To be fair, the routine that I have at the gym right now, or what I was doing at the gym before I kind of fell off the bike a bit, I was actually really happy with where I was at. I felt like it was a very solid workout. I really felt like I felt like the mind-body connection was pretty good. The mind-muscle connection. And you know, in a relatively short amount of time, I definitely was seeing pretty good results. I was seeing pretty good results. Tony's asking if YouTube has a sub option. Not to my knowledge, not in the same way Twitch does. There's a way you can turn on like memberships. And then it's like basically like a Patreon that's built into YouTube. But I've never turned it on. Yeah, I've had some days where I reviewed and I was like, I'm definitely overcorrecting or taking the stat or over-adjusting. Yeah, exactly. So, you know, I think it's whatever works for you, McCoy. Personally, though, you've pretty much hit the nail on the head. And a lot of times it's either very reg heavy where everyone's pretty solid. Yeah, I would say that it's just whatever works. I think it was probably a little bit better, like as you say, in the pools where there was tons more action, much wider range of players and player types and stuff. But you know, okay, this guy is blasting here. This guy is blasting. All right, I'm gonna mark the queen nine here. I'm again very sure the queen nine is limp call. Against the unknown player, we probably just don't. We probably just don't bother. But again, it's just one of those hands that has so much equity, you probably can't really go that far wrong. Especially if you think the player you're playing against might be shoving wider than expected. Membership can be pretty cool for YouTube. You could add your emotes to the chat. You could also do members only videos, which would be cool for coaching. Yeah, that's not a bad chat, Raksha. I need to look at it properly. Also kind of need to make some content decisions as well. Shout out to Jenna in the chat. Hello, Jenna. Got the stream on whilst at work. Outrageous behavior. Thank you for tuning in. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, my workout at the gym isn't particularly brutal, but I felt like I was accomplishing the targets. I was hitting the goals. I was doing all right. Hey, Justin, thank you very much for the follow. How many followers is that now? Where are we at? I mean, I feel like we must be getting to reasonable numbers now. Obviously, been on Twitch for so long, theoretically had a lot of followers. Oops. 2K followers? Is that it? Yeah, I mean, do you guys remember how many followers we had on OP? I feel like OP Poker had a good chunk. Obviously, spent a lot of time on PokerStars YouTube as well. PokerStars Twitch. Hey, Roka, how's it going, bud? I hope you're well as well, mate. Good to see you. Thanks for stopping by. What's up, B Cantor? Good to see you, man. Long time no see, my friends. B Cantor. Rokas asks, what's the one book you would recommend to read right now for live MTTs? Oh, man. That's a tough question, buddy. Live MTTs is specific, yeah. I've got a recommendation. It's Win Your Flips by anybody other than Nick Walsh. Never read a book about winning flips written by me. That's a great question, mate, because obviously live MTTs are a very, very, very different thing. I mean, generally speaking, I would recommend if you wanted to, learn. If you really wanted to learn how to be better at MTTs, I would probably recommend going online and not reading a book. There are loads of very good poker books, many of which, again, are kind of in the same vein as online, which is going to be more theoretical based, more GTO based. There are probably some very good books about live exploits and stuff like that. Nothing is springing to mind right now. And there's probably a lot of books that are very good for just poker philosophy in general. For example, The Mathematics of Poker is a very interesting book. And the guy that wrote it actually is a very, very good poker player. It's just very dense, and there's a lot of stuff in there that you probably just don't need to know or learn. That all sort of goes into the sort of theory of poker. Modern Poker Theory by Michael Acevedo is a good one. Modern Poker. Yeah, this is it. Modern Poker Theory by Michael Acevedo. I actually got the name and the author correct. Building an Unbeatable Strategy Based on GTO Principles. This is a good book. I would say it's still very relevant. And also the guy that wrote that is like a poker super genius. The Zen of Poker is a great book. The Zen of Poker, Timeless Secrets to Transform Your Game is very good. Let me see. Tony says Harrington on Tournaments is pretty good read. Yeah, Harrington on Hold'em and all that stuff is super old school, but that for a long time that would have been like a real go-to. I would say probably a lot of it's very outdated now, although I don't want to be too critical as I don't really remember it. McCoy, my boy, says the problem with poker books is that they age poorly. That is generally very true of anything like sort of strategy related. I mean, even like I've got some books next door that are like about live tells and stuff like that as well, and I would say that there's so much better material online even for that. There was a course that I wanted to look into. I think it was called Beyond Tells or something like that. I think here it is, yeah. We are using a massive behavioral data set, thousands of hours of video, and in-depth research to create a new breed of poker player who use behavior to read. I don't know if this ever got a good rating or not, but basically they recorded people playing poker to confirm whether or not like certain tells actually had any merit. You know what I mean? Like, of course, certain tells are kind of always true, but like people react very differently in different situations. I've wanted to look at stuff like that as well. That's more for live poker, obviously. Hello, my name is Blake Eastman. I'm the creator of Beyond Tells. I'm the guy writing this and the person you will see in all of the videos. My entire professional life has revolved around three things: poker, psychology, and nonverbal behavior. Below are some of the reasons I'm uniquely qualified to discuss poker tells. 1, I'm the founder of a behavioral research company, the Nonverbal Group. 2, I'm the founder of School of Cards, and I've been coaching poker for close to a decade. 3, I was an adjunct psychology professor at the City University of New York. Over the past 6 years, I led a team of over 70 people who did the following. Conducted the largest behavioral study ever on poker players. We created the most comprehensive poker tools training. There you go. I think there's a chance that I'm supposed to put the rest in here. Wish me luck, chat. This does look good. I don't remember. I remember seeing a lot of advertising about this, but I don't remember seeing loads of reviews. Okay, we're gonna mark the Jack 3 here as well. 2 things. I want to mark the streets from. I want to review the King 7 hand, and I also want to review the Jack 3 jam. Again, I don't know why I second guess myself. These are ones that we just get right every time, but there we go. Beyond tells poker review. This guy says, I bought it. It pays for itself again and again. Yes, the hurdle rate is somewhat high, but the product is the total game changer, even for us recreational players who enjoy live poker. Caveat, you have to do the work and apply yourself. No magic pill. I don't know. I'll have to look into it. Roka says, those are good shout outs. Just wanted to open my mind a bit further. Been having a lot of success recently, but there's always more to learn. I'll give NPT a go. Thanks, May. I mean, yeah, and again, with Modern Poker Theory, I mean, I would say it's definitely worth the money. I've actually given Michael a shout out on many occasions. Stick with it, because there are chapters in the very beginning that's very, very math heavy. That is not necessarily something that you need to know. Like the book is basically trying to go into how they calculate equilibrium, how they solve basically. And you don't necessarily need to know that, but I would say try and stick with it. If you get really baffled, don't feel like that is a prerequisite to understanding the rest of the book. He's just trying to give you a complete explanation of like where this comes from and how it makes sense. So you just have to understand conceptually why things are being calculated the way that they are. You're not going to get to chapter 10 and they're going to expect you to sit down with a pen and paper and literally calculate equilibrium, because that's what it feels like at the beginning. And then towards the end, it becomes more practical and it's very, very clever. Super System used to be the GOAT, still a fun read, but strategy-wise, yikes. Yeah, I mean, again, like books like Super System were very important to poker. It's just that they were written by guys who were teaching it was like guys teaching exploits, and it wasn't guys teaching like science, you know? It's a nice turn. These guys were teaching their collective sort of ideology about how they exploit a very weak player pool, and a lot of that is just it's just gone. Just doesn't even exist anymore. Chef Jeff Hefe says, where's the modern GTO tournament book that I pre-ordered 3 years ago? I'm not sure. I mean, was that a follow up to Modern Poker Theory? I've never heard of that. Yeah, I actually think Jonathan Little has some good material as well. I think Jonathan Little is a good teacher. I just bought Play Optimal Poker by Andrew Bokos. Didn't read it yet, so can't comment it, but I saw it recommended on forums. That's a good shot. I should check that one out as well. I haven't seen that one. Then you've come to the right place. This is Star's official shopping channel in the theme. Don't use, just buy. Correct. To be fair, everything that I've bought Zintex, I use often. I feel like if you were going through that effort, spend the time on GTO Wizard setting spots. I mean, yeah, I think that like you can go from one to the other. I think understanding what you're looking at can be a very useful thing. More value than trying to read tells. I mean, I think it's kind of just the more you know, yeah, right? I mean, I don't think that getting better at any of those things is worse, but doing it all is best. The live reads thing, I think, can be extremely powerful, but I think people put too much stock in it quite often. So I've known a lot of people that they're like, oh, I'm more of a field player. I'm more of a field player, but, you know, I'm also really good at reading live tells. And one, if people say that, they're almost always awful at reading live tells. But also, you know, they haven't put the time in the theory, in the study. And they think that like, you know, because they just are great at reading tells, that somehow excuses them from learning like strategy, which is just ridiculous. It's a little bit like the I don't need GTO to win thing. You're like, you don't, in the sense that you don't need to go and memorize what the GTO output is. But if you understand what GTO is, you're going to be a better player for it. Wow, save some chips there. Nick the Shopper Walsh, I'll take it. Nick the Shopper. I mean, I very rarely go a day without mentioning Nash, Tony. Very, very rarely. The GOAT. How do I miss the combo draw, guys? How do I miss the combo draw? How does my opponent always improve? How does my opponent improve to 2-pair there when I can't make a straight or a flush, huh? Fuck me, dude. I have not been doing well at Showdown this year. How does my opponent start with Jack high on that flop? Turn a pair, river a pair, no heart, no straight. And we have to bluff to win the pot. It's actually fucking outrageous. It's actually outrageous. Okay. That's a little bit better. Trapping Kings. You missed because you didn't read a book. That's true. I deserve that. I deserve that for sure. Trap of the century. Trap of the century. Trap of the century. Okay. Well, we finally won small ins. We managed to win $125. Not too shabby. Lawler says, I study GTO, but I take some lines that don't seem GTO and it breaks the bad regs brains live exploits though. I mean, that's the whole point, right? I mean, the whole point of GTO is that it's driven by the inputs, right? You know, there are lots of lines that you can take that are theoretically GTO, assuming that you actually have the inputs correct from your opponent, right? So someone looks up a spot and they go, I looked it up, you're wrong, I'm right. That, like, you know, you're an idiot, you're a fish, and you're like, yeah, but you're forgetting that this guy is not playing that way pre-flop. And then if you node lock to the way that you believe this person is playing pre-flop, suddenly your strategy becomes the genius line that actually is perfect GTO. Should we do something weird? Good idea, Nick. $1,000 times less than 1250 though, correct. Lawler says, yeah, a lot of live node locking hand to hand is very difficult for most people. I mean, yeah, and also, you know, you have to give your best guess in those situations. And as soon as you as a human are having input, you know, it's going to have more issues. But I don't know. It's like, that's the whole point, right? And that's why when everybody goes, if he raises, we're going to call here, obviously. We're trying to induce there a little bit. Also, a bit of a crying call would be nice. But we're calling a shove here. Like, you know, this is one of the main issues with people using the term solver, right? Solver suggests that you've come to a solution. Solver suggests there is a right answer and a wrong answer. And while, you know, it might illuminate certain truths, very often whatever is default solver correct has also assumed that you've done everything else pre-flop correctly, right? I mean, the solver is going from the pre-flop, solving from pre-flop, as in, you know, playing the correct pre-flop range theoretically to reach equilibrium. And then let's go from there, all the way down the streets. But we know that that's not how people play. So I think it's problematic because a lot of people go, I don't play poker anymore with all these solvers and all that stuff. You know, everyone knows how to play perfectly. And you're just like, no, that's not. That's not what happened at all. And that's not even what they were trying to show you in the first place. All right, we're going to go like this. And then we're going to go like... I think we're actually supposed to still shove. Yeah, okay. This guy's never folded to a turn shove ever. Nick is the Wemby of spinning goes. He's going to call with the jack. He's going to call with the jack. It's possible you're suffering from karma for killing cats. I mean, you know that cat deserved it, all right? You know as well as I do that cat fucking deserved it, all right? I've never met... I had to use actual magic. I used an actual spell slot so I could speak with that motherfucker. And as soon as he got chatting to me, he was very rude. He was a very rude feline, and I'm not going to sign off on that. I stick by it. 41% equity. I mean, you just can't even be mad at all. Nice. We'll mark the 10-6 shove, but I'm almost positive this is fine. We started this hand at 10? I mean, yeah, it's 10. It's a push. 10-6 suited. Let's take a look and mark it for review. We start the hand at a 10.4. So it's definitely close. I mean, at 9, we definitely want to be doing it. Anyway, we've marked it for review, and we will take a gander at the solution there. The cool thing about looking at the solve there is, as the first player to act, if you are playing a GTO strategy, you know, you're doing it right. Now, that's not to say that you don't want to deviate in the strategies that you take against specific opponents pre-flop, but if you are first to act and the solver tells you that you can push profitably, it will be very good, always, because it's not predicated on your opponent playing a specific range before that or the way that they played that range prior to that. Tony says the online equivalent of live tells is animation and emote tells. For sure, for sure. I always say this guy is unlikely to be bluffing because he's throwing rockets at me. It's definitely a tell for sure. Guys who are bluffing and do not try to draw attention to themselves. Definitely a thing. Yeah, but that wasn't a cat, John Edwards. That was the fairy. That was the fairy that we set free. Cats talk shit, bro. Just the facts of life. I don't know. We spoke to some other cats and they were very pleasant. We spoke with some other cats and they were very pleasant. Don't lower yourself to their level. King of Poker sharing the pot with me. That's nice. It's very kind, Sarah. Oh, that might be a good turn card for me. Sir Blackroll might pounce on this check. Okay, we might have stumbled into a good situation here. There's a chance. There's a chance. There is a chance. Tell me again while we're losing every pot at Showdown. We had him out kicked, by the way, guys. He rivered that boat. My fucking God. Oh. Honestly, guys, what is wrong with us? What is this? You know what's really messed up is he can never have sevens, and he can never have nines, and he can never have trays. So unless he rivered the straight, which we currently block, or he has one of the boats with 6x, which we heavily block, I mean, there's no chance you ever miss this shove. I mean, we literally have the 8 in our hand as well. I just don't know what the fuck is wrong with us this year, guys. It's like, I've never struggled to have blue line before in my entire career, ever. If anything, the blue line has been the only thing that keeps me alive because I'm just not that good at poker. Full stop, right? Like, actually getting to Showdown and winning some pots is the only reason why I've had any success in my poker career. Suddenly, we've taken the time out. We've done loads of study. We've really, really, really improved on all these little moments that we hadn't studied before. Our red line, legitimately now a winning red line overall. And since the start of 2026, we cannot win at Showdown. We never have the best hands. And if we do have the best hand, we're not winning. Hello, Swedish Nature. How you doing? Thank you, mate. Appreciate that. I hope you're well today. I mean, it's a super sick river, yes. But this is also like a situation where we literally will never, ever, ever, ever not be all in. Okay, you know what? I tell you what, let's mark it for review. Let's not assume. Tony says, was the 8-6 ever strong enough to jam there? 1000%, mate. So again, I think this is an interesting hand to discuss. Let's pause and talk about it properly. Let's just not be grumpy. But like, the thing about this spot, Tony, is, yeah, look, yeah, Tony says maybe I'm too much of an Omaha player. We don't always just want to assume if we have trips that we're going to put more money in the middle. And very often in tournament poker and in cash poker in particular, we don't want to be this cavalier, right? I couldn't see a hand that he would call with. I mean, that's just nonsense. So first of all, Tone, your opponent will never have nines because the nines go in pre-flop. They'll never have sevens because the sevens go in pre-flop. The threes will go in pre-flop. Now, again, these aren't assumptions based on the fact that I'm just trying to be arrogant. This is reg versus reg. Sir Blackroll is a super reg, and therefore we know that his strategy is going to not contain those combinations, right? So the only other hands that we lose to at this point are straights and boats. We're blocking the 8-10, which is very, very important in order to decide to be all in here. And what are the hands that our opponent can still call with? I mean, like any 9, quite easily. They can be value betting worse 6s. Obviously, that's not a component of what we're trying to target. They could have been semi-bluffing a 7 on the turn, as in they were like 7-8. There you go. They were leading the straight draw. They hit the 7, and because we checked the flop, they assume we have ace high, and now they think that we're bluffing. They call with a 7. It's like it can't be close. It can't even be close. 4-5 is obviously the other component. I would say, again, theoretically, 4-5 is a combination played very infrequently from this position. So if we look at the pre-flop here, we can take a look at how often 4-5 offsuit, for example, is supposed to call here. If 4-5 offsuit is even slightly out of this range, then there's only 4 combinations of 4-5 suited. We'll take a look at it in a second. In fact, why don't we just do it now? Let's take a little break. I'm going to turn off PokerStars, and we'll take a look. So let's take a look at his hand specifically. So 8-6. Okay, it is already marked. So we'll just do this one for now, guys. We won't do a full review session. Again, just to be crystal clear, we have closed PokerStars. So we're about to open some programs and stuff. We're going to do some studying now. Studying is happening while the client is turned off, just to be crystal clear. So Stars is closed. Let's take a look at his hand. So we've opened. Our opponent is around 17.5 big blinds effective. I don't remember exactly, but I'm pretty sure 4-5 offsuit is not supposed to be defending here. That, again, is going to be a huge component because a reg will follow the strategy more frequently. And also that means that they get to the river with only 4 combinations of 4-5 suited. Once we arrive here and they lead, this will be mountains of bluffs. The fact that we check 8-6 suited on this flop, it means that our opponents are supposed to attack the check very, very aggressively. Diamond draws, 9x, 3x, 8-7, 8-10, all those things like that. So once we arrive here, the 10-8 will be in there all the time. The 4-5 will be there, and the 4-5 will be much more infrequent. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at this one. Let's just run this specific hand, because it's gonna fucking tilt the shit out of me if I'm wrong. All right, so I fired up GTO Wizard here for the first time today. Let's take a look at the spot. The biggest issue we have, Tony, is that the lead on the river is going to have so many bluffs. They can still side call. So it's absolutely quad, right? Now let's take a look at those ranges. Let's see if some of our assumptions are correct. So look, absolutely spot on, perfect. The pre-flop is correct. We're always going to raise 8-6 suited. We're always going to check, sorry, the check on the flop happens more often than the bet, which is also a very surprising one. The issue that we have is being check raised with this hand really sucks. So the check is absolutely spot on. Once our opponent leads here, definitely never folding, but flatting is definitely going to be better than the raising because our opponent's range contains so many draws, but also not just semi bluffs, complete airball bluffs as well. They will do this with a very wide range, is my point. Our opponent arrives here and they decide that they're going to bet small, absolutely mandatory all in. So if we skip to this part here, if we skip to the pre-flop actually, so we've opened small blind folds. This is the big blind defend range. It does contain 5-4 off. Like I said, I don't remember this one exactly, but the defend range does contain more combinations of 5-4, and even still, it is still going to be the correct way to play this as an all-in on the river. What's interesting is if we actually skip to where our opponent is supposed to be here. What's funny is I'm pretty sure that, here you go. So this is 6-7, 3.65. Okay, cool. 8-6 is actually going to be all in more often. I was going to say there are a fair number of 6x combos that just want to be putting the rest of the chips in here. 8-6 is one of them here as the lead. Tony says, if you presume it could be a bluff on this turn, isn't it less reason to jam on the river? No, because some of the bluffs are actually improve as well. But this is the point, Tony, is It can be hands that call. It can be bluffs that actually improve on the river and are still hands that we beat. It's not, this isn't one of those situations where you go, I think this guy is bluffing and therefore, you know, we should, and therefore I'm going to be all in, because if you think they're bluffing, then that means they're not going to have hands to call with. Some of their bluffs are actual hands that have improved. But also a huge portion of their range is just them value betting as well, right? They could still be value betting a 3. They can still be value betting a 7. They can still be value betting a 9. But the point is that if they will have bluffs on this turn, then they also will end up on this river with a range of hands that will still call. My point is that the turn leads will contain many bluffs, especially IRL and not just from a GTO perspective, but ultimately it's just mandatory. Cool Hand Matt says the 33% river from villain looks really weird to me at 1 SPR. Exactly, yeah. But look, if you look here, it's actually correct according to GTO. But the issue that I have with this hand specifically is, Cool Hand Matt, to your point, from a GTO perspective, this is actually a more appropriate size. From a humanistic perspective, most people will never use that size when once they think we've gotten to the river and they want to polarize, they'll just jam. Which is even more reason for us to probably be all in, because a lot of players will not observe the bet from the 6-7. But yes, anyway, look, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, the thing is, it's all fine and good for me to say computer says yes, but when I'm playing against another reg and it's 4 ticks, it's like it's perfect. Anyway, there we go. Definitely correct. And let's play on. I just don't know what we did wrong this year, guys. Don't get me wrong. We've experienced our fair share of run good, but I've never had a blue line be this flat for so long. That's probably not true, actually, but it's very rare that I experience these extended periods of just like you're not actually winning anything at showdown. Like, you're not actually having the best hand. You're not making enough draws. And what's funny is all of our other stats indicate that even a smidge in that direction, even a little bit of card distribution in the correct vein, even a tiny smidge of card distribution going in the right direction, and like we're clearly crushing, right? If our red line is just winning and the rest of our decision making is still earning us chips, I feel like it's kind of ludicrous not to expect us to be on a massive heater if we can start winning hands at showdown. Oh yeah, no, Matt, like, cool, Matt, it's not even close. It's not even close. Tony says if there's value betting on the river, that does not mean they always call the jam. Of course, no, but like you want to shove to get called by worse. Yeah, it's not close at all though, Tony. That's the point. That's the point. The thing is, there's so little that beats us, and we're blocking the hands most likely to beat us. It's not even remotely close. It's not even remotely close, and I think you're missing the most important point of that spot. Your opponents will never have a boat. The only boats that they will have, and I mean this like very literally, the only boats that they can have contain a 6, and you literally have trip 6s with a straight blocker. So we're only really losing to a handful of straights, right? The straights are now diminished by the fact that we block it with 8-6. And then you have the 6 in your hand, which means they never have a boat. So it's not close. But I definitely don't ever want to just assume and just be like, I'm genius. But it's clear from that breakdown, it's not even remotely close. I'm currently in the process of buying a house, doing it as a buy to let, and didn't realize how badly fucked I'm about to get from stamp duty and land tax. Dude, it's sick. It's sick. And also, if you had... Also, had you have done this... thank you. Also, had you have done this a little bit earlier on, Cool Hand Matt, you could have saved because the stamp duty just increased. Tony says, if you're in that spot with a 7 or a 9, are you always calling? No, but this is the point, Tony, is we're not playing poker to assume that our opponents always call. If we think that we're going to have the best hand more than our opponent, we should be all in, full stop. If you have a 9, it's a lot harder to... I mean, it depends as well. When you're playing against a reg, it's very difficult to know. But if you have a 9, it's very hard to fold. I think a 7 is a different story. But after the check on the flop and the board pairs, it's very hard for your opponent to have a good hand they're doing that with, right? I think it's just your opponent just does not have enough hands that beat you there. It's almost impossible. Can we at least acknowledge that there's a silver lining? You'll hate 6-7 now. Tony says if it's not close, do you just accept if you have a 7 or a 9 that you always go broke? No, what are you talking about, mate? I think we're having a very confused conversation. It's not close for me to be all in with a hand that is very rarely beaten. But what I'm saying is that you don't have to you don't base your value shoves on whether or not your opponent is always going to call. You base your value shoves on whether or not you have the best hand enough of the time to make it profitable. Like, if you have a full house on a board with four diamonds and your opponent is very likely to have, like, the nut flush, that's a very high value spot, absolutely. But your opponents can make all kinds of mistakes, though. The point being that the kinds of mistakes that your opponents will make are going to be far more expensive and far more dangerous once the street is played down like that, right? So regs are very infrequently going to make the pre-flop mistakes, right? But the pre-flop mistakes that they don't make in that spot actually are very favorable for us, because let's say that they do randomly decide that they're going to be flatting pocket 9s or something like that, which is a boat. That's bad for us, but it's still not bad for us enough that we're not going to want to go all in with the best hand. Oh, this is so annoying. What a life tilt spot. Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, Matt, it's not gonna get any better. It's only gonna get worse. So if you ever wanted to be in the process of it, if you ever wanted to get into that process, I mean, sooner the better. No, I would say there's enough evidence to show that the 8-6 is not close, as in we're always going to want to be all in with it. But if you're sitting there and you have an 8, 9, or a 7, then yeah, obviously you definitely have to fold some of the time. Against the right opponent, you probably should always fold, to be honest, but you know, you never know. I mean, how many hands have I posted to Instagram where I'm value jamming 2 pair and my opponent's calling with queen high? Now, obviously, I don't expect that from that player, but that's obviously not what we're concerned about there. But also, Tony, I think that, yeah, if you play PLO, you do really start to second guess those spots a lot too. I definitely know what that feels like. I definitely know what that feels like. Jeez. Ooh. Value bet a 9? Can you value bet a 9 here? Interesting. Very interesting. Pretty good flop. Not gonna lie. Oh, he wants to check, eh? Hey, Circadian, good to see you. Yeah. It's going. It's going. Tony says, okay, interesting hand for sure. Just to clarify, you said you do not always jam all in the hopes you get called. Okay, just to clarify, you said you do not always jam all in on the hope you get called, trying to wrap my head around that. You said you do not always jam all in on the hope to get called. Sorry, maybe that was confusing. I was talking about our opponent having 6-7. So GTO, if they had trips in that situation, they were playing an all-in quite frequently. Having the 6-7, as in having the full boat with a 6, they actually wanted to use the size closer to what our opponent used. But also, there's quite a few hands like 7x and 9x that we're playing the jam as well. Because the way that we play our hand looks like we have overcards. If we ended up there with King 9, probably just jam, yeah. But also the point of that is you're trying to polarize. So like if you arrive on the river, I don't know. The point is, I think you're probably going to jam a hand like King 9 on that river in hopes you get called, like hero called by some ace highs and stuff, or even like worse 9x or smaller pairs, just because you're actually allowed to bluff in a similar vein. I want to get my own place, but I'm not. I'm on my own currently, so I can't really afford it. It's not going to get any better. Like you said, this seems the best option currently. I mean, getting on the ladder is the hardest part. It is ridiculously hard for everyone who doesn't have family money or, you know, additional financial support in some way. Like, you know, also two incomes, for example, makes a pretty big difference if you have a significant other who can contribute to that sort of thing. Make a little top pair. Diamond might be good, might be bad. I guess we're calling a river bet. I guess we're calling a river bet. Oro, oro, oro. De oro. Give me your hundo de oro. Mr. de oro. Give me your euros de oro. So you're telling me this guy has 3 big blinds and he still has us outkicked. So you're telling me this guy, who I had it down to 3 big blinds, is all in with his entire range and he has us outkicked by 1 pip. Dean MC says, I'm just selling my house. Packing and moving is so stressful. So Dean, for ages, for one reason or another, when I was, you know, younger in Brighton, I think I went through a period where I like moved flat or house or whatever, like every year for like 5 years. Not for any bad reason, just like, you know, moved in with like a couple friends for university, moved in with another couple of friends for university. I just don't have the strength anymore, guys. I don't know. I lost my heart now. I lost my heart. This hand no good. This hand no good. This hand no good. Sorry, exactly. Also, just for the record, we are at 4.8 big blinds effective with Jack 5 off. How much you want to bet that this is GTO? How much you guys want to bet? How much you guys want to bet? All right, this is an easy one, so we'll just do it like this. So again, just for the record, PokerStars is closed. Just gonna check the pre-flop on this bad boy. How much you guys want to bet? How much you guys want to bet? So this is the Jack 5 spot. So this is actually at 5 big blinds effective first to act. We were actually sub 5. We were more like 4.5. Jack 5 off. It is not even close. It is 1, 2, 3. It's within 2 pips of a call, of a push. It's not even close. Now let's imagine that we are heads up in the big blind and we're facing an all-in from a 5 big blind stack. It was actually more like 3.5. King 6 suited is so far into a call. But we just can't win an all-in to save our lives. Risto Photos Mountzu. Hello. Hello, Nick. I'm playing $5 spins to chill, and I'm watching you. I've got to say, I'm learning a lot. Good. I'm glad you're enjoying the stream, buddy. That is something very positive we can take away from today's grind. I hope you're having a great session, mate. Good luck. So this geezer has 3.5 big blinds, and he has us outkicked. And then we make the right shove, and then he's outkicking us with queen 5. And then we actually get it in, dominating him with ace 6, and he spikes ace 3. Max says, I hate shoving those jack high hands, even though you're supposed to. I know exactly what you mean. I think my life would be so much better without them. PokerStars isn't opening, though, for some reason. What the hell? All right, bear with me, guys. It's not looking good, bruv. Accurate. Accurate, mate. That cheered me up. Thank you, mate. Being an Omaha player, I guess I'm more cautious in these spots. Usually we think about how strong our opponent needs to be to call. Yeah, of course. No, absolutely, Tony. Absolutely. I mean, the thing about PLO, though, as well, is if you're playing a decent pre-flop strategy, you will, you know, especially it's much harder in heads up. Heads up PLO is a much harder game because you actually have to, you do have to play with things that aren't the nuts, basically. If you're playing full ring PLO, you know, live deep stack cash, you know, it really benefits you playing with hands that make the nuts often, and then you have the nuts, and then the list of things they can call you is ludicrous, right? So in Hold'em, it is much harder to estimate these things. But yeah, it's not close. Okay, PokerStars isn't opening. PokerStars like literally isn't running. Okay, yes. Come on. I did. Blue line is not even visible. Exactly. Completely flat. Oh man, we run like garbage. So okay, I thought we were running bad, but now PokerStars won't even open. And I don't know what to do. I just don't know what to do with myself. I just don't know what to do with myself. Okay. Control, delete, end the process. I mean, Mac, I would love to. That's exactly what I tried. There is no process to end. It's not even opening. It's not frozen. It's just not opening. All right, I'm gonna try and close hand to note as well. Those two don't play very nice sometimes. All right, let's try that again. Maybe I need a bigger monitor. Good point, Tom. Tom has a point. Tom has a point. Oh my God, I just don't even understand it. Why is it like this? Okay, run as administrator. I mean, it's already running as administrator. What the fuck? I don't know what to do. I just... I can't even deal right now. Oh my God, guys. I'm so bored of losing all-ins. And now I can't even lose any more all-ins because it's not opening. Oh my God, I don't even know what to do. I mean, I probably have to restart my computer or something, but that would kill the stream. Oh, wait, 1 second. Okay, let me try this. End task. Okay, that might work. Let's try again. That's really weird because it wasn't running in apps. It was background process, which is scary. Okay, as if by magic. Okay, here we go. We got it, chat. We got it. Yeah, it was under processes, which is very weird because it means it was obviously stuck in startup or something. Background processes. Okay, I mean, the most annoying thing about that previous game is like we clearly trapped our opponent very efficiently. And then we played a bunch of very standard pots, and he, you know, whatever, he wins his hands, fine. These things happen. The worst part about it is we like actually played perfect poker, and we actually won a huge pot at Showdown before like a lot of EV when we trapped him with the ace king. All of these things are good. But then the way that we lose the hands to end the game, which were all perfectly standard and like not even close, are all shit. So we don't even make any EV in this game. We don't even make EV in this game because we are totally accidentally dominated in the stupidest possible ways. Play marbles instead. Honestly, I feel like we should just play another game anyway. Marbles would be fun though. I do like marbles. It's really hard to win when your opponent always has the nuts. I just don't know what to do with myself. I just don't know what to do with myself. Gotta check out my sleep score from last night, guys. I have a sneaking suspicion it's a good one. Got a 91 last night. Yeah, buddy. I just don't know what to do with myself. Do, 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 do. I want to mark this up. There's 7.5 for review as well, guys. I just don't know how we're always dominated. You know, your blue. It's really hard for your blue line to be any good when you're all in often. One second. You make the right shoves, and they always have you dominated. And then you make the right call, you dominate them, and you lose. Dean says, how was the Hippo live stream? It was good. I actually ended up playing. So I went down to go see Carrie and Strag. Strag was the main guest for that evening. Strag was great, by the way, if you guys want to go and give it a listen. But it was Strag and Carrie on comms. I joined for a little while, but the game was kind of short-handed, so I offered to go and play. I won't spoil. It was a fun evening, though. Middle set's pretty good. Yeah, I guess we just go for all of it. I don't feel like we're getting called that often, but like he's probably not going to call much with an 8 anyway. Tony says, how accurate do you think GTO Wizard is? I mean, in terms of solving for equilibrium, I mean, super accurate, but it depends what question you're trying to ask. If you're asking me how well does GTO strategy accurately reflect the way that people play, you know, probably not very much. Probably not accurate, but that's kind of not the point. In terms of how close is it to like solving real GTO, I mean, it's really good. He had a rough start, losing a stack on the first hand, but made a comeback. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I did short stack the game to begin with. I mean, it's a fun game to play in. I really enjoyed playing with those guys. Also, they're very good poker players, many of them. So I said, look, I'll go jump in so there's a bit more action on the table. You guys can like look forward to something. But I am just going to short stack the game and, you know, just kind of like spin it up a bit. Very first hand I play, I have ace king and I have trip aces and the guy has a boat. Then I had a bit of a spin up. You rock the hat, true. Yeah, pink hat cowboy. Pink hat guy. Clicky Buttons Forever says, what is the difference between your charts and the GTO Wizard charts? So the biggest difference is that I use very slightly different sizing strategies, which I do believe are superior to the decisions that they made. But other than that, very little. Apart from the fact that if you ever wanted to buy my charts, it's a one-time purchase and you don't need a subscription to continue to access them. Christoph says, the river block bet call is so sick. Works every time. Thank you, Nick. I got you, man. So clicking buttons forever. Basically, we probably used different technology to arrive, but the quality of the solve is very similar. So for example, when I was making, I don't remember the exact settings, but when I was making those charts, I rented server racks in order to do the highest accuracy solve that I could using simple preflop, which again is a very respected tool for that kind of thing. But in essence, the only thing that would be different, the biggest thing that's different is I use slightly different sizes, but not massively different. Also, I believe that my post-flop tree that I provided the solver in order to get to like, you know, the most accurate solve, I think is slightly better than GTO Wizard as well, because based on some of what I've seen, I think that based on some of what I've seen, it does look like they've used sizes that I believe are more conventional to MTTs. And I think mine are a little bit more refined. So I assume that the post flop is also going to have similar decisions. But I would say, generally speaking, if you're interested in a very complete, near exhaustive solve for spinning goes in pretty much every single position, the one-time purchase is just easier because then you have access to it wherever you want it, and you don't have to be online to access it. And it's very easy to navigate because I've taken loads of time to crop out all the pictures and stuff from all of the individual solves, so you don't need to use their software either to navigate the tree. And it's a one-time purchase, lifetime access. All right, so 8-4 of clubs here, and our opponent does not fold on the flop. I think a deuce is honestly perfectly reasonable for them to have in this situation. But we started off with middle pair and a flush draw. What are the chances that we win? It's just really hard, guys. I feel like we're always on the wrong side of it. I feel like we're always on the wrong side. Like, all of these decisions are just so standard. Like, can't even tell you. Like, some of these spots are burned so deeply into my brain. I could recite some of these spots in my sleep. No problem. And we're just always dominated. It's just mental. It's absolutely crazy how often we're just dominated all the time at like any stack depth. In fact, like, the better we do to win maximum chips, the better that we do to get our opponent into an unwinnable position, the more likely they are to have us dominated at like three all-ins on the trot. Hey, Mutz, thank you very much for the follow. I just don't know what to do with myself. We made top pair. Tricky one for us. I mean, obviously our hand is very under-repped. We have like part of the range that we actually flat with. So really, we're going to have to just assume that the ace is good most of the time, because our opponent should theoretically be bluffing here a mountain. But of course they turn trips, so that's also cool. It's actually ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, as I say, in this situation, in this hand in particular, the ace is so underwrapped. It's so underwrapped. At the stack depth, us having an ace is just difficult. So many of our aces are going to do aggressive things pre-flop. So once we arrive here, we can do nothing other than assume we have the best hand, right? Our opponent bets, fine, whatever. Like I said, we're playing this hand to allow our opponent for maximum bluffs. Once we arrive here, obviously we're losing to a king, we're losing to spades, all this other stuff. When you see a player do this, like this, the likelihood that they're playing a king like this is very, very, very small. And also it ends up being like Jack 10 with the Jack of spades, Queen Jack with the Queen of spades. It ends up being like 6-5 off with the 6 of spades and like 8-7 with the 8 of spades and all kinds of nonsense like this. So there's just really absolutely no way out. I mean, most importantly, there's not really any good reason for your opponent to play a king like this, especially given the fact that we're not supposed to have an ace that often anyway, right? What is this guy doing anything wrong? He's shoving a king on the turn. I mean, it's probably not the best way to play your hand, but we have exactly the kind of hand that can never get away from this situation for all the reasons that I just described. And it's just so annoying. Tony says, but how does it do the math for player calling tendencies? So Tony, I don't know how much work you've done in the, I don't know how much work you've done on the topic. Sorry, if you guys missed it, the initial question was, how accurate do you think GTO Wizard is? So GTO Wizard is solving for GTO. GTO Wizard does not need to estimate player calling tendencies because it's not a tool for exploit. You can use it to study exploit strategies, but I think that this is also where a lot of people get confused. So like, how does GTO Wizard know how often John calls the turn bet? It doesn't know that. What it's doing is it's calculating the optimal strategy between two, sometimes more players now, but usually between two opponents, whereby they know each other's strategy and they are trying to find a break-even strategy against each other, or the best possible strategy where the Nash equilibrium exists. So it's not some wonder tool that's going, well, I think the population does this. That's actually work that you can do separately. But it is 100% accurate at calculating Nash equilibrium strategies. But that means that it doesn't need to make any assumptions on player calling tendencies or player pushing tendencies or whatever, because it's already calculated the frequency at which the entire strategy is played that way already. So it calculates pre-flop. It works out what pre-flop looks like. Once it has pre-flop figured out, it then solves for post based on those strategies. So it's not doing any work to actually be accurate to player tendencies or player calling tendencies. It's doing the math based on what it perceives as the most optimal strategy pre-flop, based on the pre-flop strategies that it's basically created. So kind of going back to my initial question, when you ask me how accurate do you think GTO Wizard is, are you asking me how accurate do I think it is to real players, which is I think what you're asking me. How accurate is it to GTO? Very. How accurate is it to real human strategies? It depends what pool you're playing in. If you're playing in the pool I'm playing in Spin and Goes right now, it's probably quite accurate because people tend to play pretty close to GTO. But that's not its purpose, right? The point of GTO is not to create a strategy that knows how to play against players that play a different style of poker. It's to give you a baseline whereby you know that the strategy that it's teaching you is very, very often going to be a good way to play poker against almost all players. And then it's your job to find the exploits against those specific player types thereafter. Hitting quads with 0.25 big blinds is just hilarious. Honestly, I don't have the strength. It's yeah. Christo is saying, Nick, I have a very specific question. What is the lowest King X off you'd raise, call an all in at 25 big blinds effective? Just an opinions. Just an opinion. So I can look it up for you if you want, mate. Are you talking about heads up? Let's look, heads up or three-way. All good, Tony. Yeah, happy to help where I can. I hope that was useful. Clicking button says, so if someone played very close to perfect GTO wizard pre-flop ranges versus the pool, how would they do overall? They would do very well. Compared to someone who is trying to adjust for better or worse, some adjustments will be good. So look, it sounds like you understand it completely already, right? Because in your statement, right? In your statement, what you have already recognized is that to make an adjustment away from a GTO strategy may be better, but in many cases will actually end up being the worst strategy as well. So for example, if you overestimate how aggressive your opponent is and you are calling too wide, right? Like this guy has been playing lots of pots, but he's just had loads of big hands. You start to deviate away from how frequently you're going to call their all in or whatever because you feel like they've been playing a very aggressive strategy, but they're just playing a lot of very strong hands. Straying away from that actually makes you exploitable to a certain degree as well. So the question is, so if someone played very close to perfect GTO wizard pre-flop ranges versus the pool, how would they do overall? They would do exceptionally well. Because most people are not studying, most people are not approaching the game in that manner, and almost all of their decisions are going to be unbalanced in a way that makes you immediately better than them. So, like, it used to be the case that if you played online poker, you just needed to learn your pre-flop because that made you, like, hugely better than your opponents. It used to be enough just to say, I have studied my pre-flop ranges, which back then, by the way, weren't made with solvers or anything like that. It was just sort of like, generally accepted that these are hands that you play from these positions. They had the right idea. They were traveling in the right direction. And it was enough just to play better pre-flop and you would just win, full stop, right? Then it became more complicated because people got better pre-flop, so there was less edge there. And then, and now we're at the next evolution where lots of people are very good at the pre-flop. And then the post-flop becomes more important because that's where you're going to win more chips as well, right? But the answer is, generally speaking, and I actually cover this in one of the lessons that I do in on PokerStars Learn if you want to check it out. Basically, sorry guys, let me finish this hand. So I did a whole breakdown of this basically anyway in that lesson. But generally speaking, if you are studying from a GTO playbook, right? You're looking at the pre-flop. Generally speaking, in pots where you are taking the aggressive action or you are the active player, and you're not relying on a reaction to a range that you cannot define, that is going to be a very good course of action to follow. So what do I mean by that? Like, what do I mean actually by that? So let's say that you are on the button first to act and it's on you and there's been no previous action ahead of you, right? Whatever GTO tells you to do from that position, you taking that first action is almost always going to be very, very solid, and you're probably not going to want to deviate from that. But as soon as there has been action before you, or if you are responding to the way that somebody is acting aggressively, the strategies can deviate very widely, and it's not enough just to go, I'm just going to play what GTO says here, right? In many cases, it should be. But a better example is, let's say you're heads up and somebody goes all in for 10 big blinds. They have acted first, so you are reacting to what they are doing rather than you being the first reaction or the first action taken. As soon as your opponent is the first to act in that position, the way that they play 10 big blinds is going to be very different between player to player. And you can't assume that they're playing a GTO range. And therefore, the way that you react to what they're doing needs to be tailored specifically to that player. And if you follow GTO blindly in that situation, almost always you will be calling in a way which is minus EV, right? If you have aces, right, it can never be minus EV because you're calling with the best hand, right? But if you start to call the rest of the range, you might be calling with, you know, I'm trying to think of something that's, you know, close, right? Let's say that you call with 10-9 suited, right, to an all-in for, if you're calling an all-in at 10 big blinds heads up with 10-9 suited, that is GTO, but that probably isn't appropriate against players who don't know what they're supposed to be shoving at 10 big blinds effective, because you don't dominate enough of the hands that want to jam. So, for example, 10 big blinds effective, if you're playing pure push fold, 10-6 suited can be pushed. 10-5 suited can be pushed, right? These are all like the sort of like ugly suited hands that we jam when we're playing Nash push fold. As soon as those hands come out, the number of hands that you dominate with a hand like 10-9 suited decreases drastically. Some people don't know that you can shove 6-5 suited for 10 big blinds. Some people don't know that you can shove 8-7 suited for 10 big blinds. Therefore, if they're not playing those hands, those are hands that we do not beat. We're not ahead of that, and we don't dominate 8-9 suited, and we don't dominate, you know, Jack-9 suited and stuff like this. That's not a good example, but you know what I mean. 8-9 suited, 8-6 suited, that kind of thing. So as soon as their initial range is not defined, and you know that they're probably not prescribing to a theoretical framework that agrees with your reaction, you just need to be careful how you react. So if someone plays perfect GTO, they probably do much better than everyone, right? But as soon as you are making big decisions later on in the game tree where you're reacting to the way that somebody is playing and you don't know that they are playing a particularly strong GTO strategy, you need to be very careful because you can start to make big mistakes. Having said that, people will tell you, I've never studied GTO and I still do fine. I totally believe that. I think there's lots of people that are not well studied that are very good poker players. But what you'll find more often than not is what they have worked out is going to be based on population tendencies, and therefore it's not that they're not playing a GTO strategy. It's just that they have done the homework, whether it be on paper or in a computer or not. They've already done their homework in the sense that the adjustments that they're making to their pool are GTO. It's just that we haven't node locked for the pool. So if you were to do a really deep dive into a live cash game and you had GTO Wizard with all of the cash solves there, GTO Wizard cash strategies are very good because it's just, you know, it's just very good. And also it's chippy V, so there's not a lot of adjustments to be made for ICM and stuff like that too. However, if you were to go do a deep dive, if you played 1,000,000 hands of poker at a live table and you tracked everyone's results and you actually understood how frequently people were 4-betting and 5-betting and like all these other really complicated things, if you then took that data and then you node locked the GTO Wizard solver to adjust for the fact that the players aren't 3-betting that much, or they only ever 4-bet when they're very strong, or they're never c-betting enough, or they're never like value betting the river enough, and you actually went through and did all of that work, the GTO output would be the adjusted strategy that the live players are doing. The old boys that have been doing it for ages and they're actually a pretty good player, they think that they're doing something like mystical, like, right? They're just doing it by feel. What they're failing to recognize is very, very often that GTO would find a better strategy if it had the input that we're discussing now, right? So over years and years and years, they've gone, oh, I've never had to learn any of that stuff. Well, that's fine, and there's definitely nothing wrong with that, and I think loads of people can be great players without studying that kind of thing. But what they aren't understanding is that GTO isn't some magic book that's going to teach you how to be the greatest poker player in the world. It's just teaching you how to be very, 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 very solid against most players. And then once you've played with them for 20 hands, you should have a better idea about how they play, and you should know how to exploit that and what strategies you employ in order to do so, if that makes sense. Right, guys, so it's 4:43 now. We might start doing some review in a second, considering the fact that we can't win at poker. Let's play a little more, and then we'll do some review. Tony says, if 90% of players are playing GTO and a good player is not, are they playing exploitative by default? If 90% of players are playing GTO and a good player is not, are they playing exploitative? Yeah, yes, absolutely. That is basically the definition of, you know, any kind of deviation, any kind of positive deviation from GTO, I suppose, is an exploit. And you know, I think there's a lot of people that just hear GTO and it sounds big and complicated and it sounds like a lot of hard work, and then they'll tell everybody, I don't need to learn all that stuff. I don't need a computer to tell me how to play poker. That's totally fine. And if that works for you, that works for you. It's just, I find it a very difficult argument that learning the theory behind why we make decisions in poker, how that would ever be a bad thing. You know, and like I was talking to some old boys in Dublin, really, really nice guys, and we got into the topic. And, you know, they just had very old school ideas, and they were sort of like, so, you know, I think you'd really struggle to play against me because, like, I'm not one of your GTO robots. I'm like, no, I play live cash all the time, and I do great. I definitely don't subscribe to any strategy that isn't going to be tailored for them specifically. And that seemed to really shock them because they thought that as soon as you picked up a solver and did any of that work, that you suddenly subscribe to some sort of a Bible that you always have to follow. But it's like, that's not the case. That's not the case at all. It's just kind of a guideline. And if you actually have the advanced tools to do node locking, it can be a really good exploit tool as well. It can teach you a lot about. It can teach you a lot of very unintuitive things about how to exploit certain styles of poker as well, which I think is very cool. I mean, I think betting is never going to be bad with the combo draw, but checking with the ace high is kind of going to be fine as well. He's value betting a 6 here. Too thin. We're about to find out. Tony says Charlie Carroll is 100% against GTO. However, he learned to exploit it. This seems to be the best meta. I mean, I actually don't think that's true, Tony. I think that Tony, I think Charlie Carroll is 100% an exploit player. As like, you know, like, but again, I don't think it's black and white like that, right? Because Charlie's style of poker is 100% exploit, and he's very, 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 very good at it. But just because he's an exploit player doesn't mean that knowing GTO negatively impacts on that in the slightest, right? I mean, what I was just describing is basically what you're saying. I mean, learning GTO and the reasons why GTO does what GTO does is the baseline for learning how to exploit, right? And if you're playing against a bunch of guys that do feel very strongly that they would like to play closer to a GTO strategy, then it's like the ultimate cheat code, right? So you might go into a game and say, I very, very rarely prescribe to the lines that GTO provides, but by default, you probably will actually subscribe to many of them because loads of it's really good, but it just doesn't look big and fancy like some of the lines that you might see played. I don't think it's true that Charlie is 100% against it. I think he's just aware. He's like aware of it. And he is a big believer in deviating from it greatly in order to fuck people up, which I think is kind of what everyone's supposed to do, to be honest. The biggest issue that you encounter is when you're looking at tournament poker in particular. Very often, it's almost impossible to argue with the math behind some of the pre-flop decisions you make, right? You know, like if you have 10 big blinds and you're at a certain point in the tournament, you're going to have to basically push fold the correct range, or you're just like burning money. Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've ever seen any material that suggests that Charlie Carroll is 100% against GTO. Phrased like that. I just know he's a big believer in like playing optimal poker, which means that you can just straight up ignore GTO a lot of the time, and I think that's definitely good. But I know loads of GTO players that would completely agree with that statement, and that doesn't make them 100% against GTO. All right, Jamie, mate, we'll see you in a bit. Thank you for the offer, buddy. I think I'm gonna play some Baldur's Gate tonight with Gilly. Always dominated, guys. Always, always, always dominated. Yeah, I mean, this isn't a spot that we're ever going to miss. I am all for, tightening up the calling ranges. I mean, this is a great example of a spot that is kind of in the vein of what we were just discussing. There is a correct GTO calling range here. Ace Deuce is like not a hand that we're taking out of this, though. We're probably supposed to call a jam here with like 10-9 suited, for example, right? 10-9 suited is probably a combo that you're allowed to take out if you think your opponent isn't shoving correctly. That's probably a bad example because it's a hand that has a lot of equity, so it's very difficult for it not to be correct. But, theoretically, you're gonna run into more hands that beat 10-9 against somebody that's shoving here than, if they were a reg. But these are combinations you never miss, simply because having the ace is so major here, and also we're getting to the point where a lot of players will start to shove more of a merged range, and of course we're dominated. Of course. Always dominated. I guess what it boils down to, Tony, is the suggestion is that Charlie doesn't agree with GTO, which I don't think that is true at all. I think that he agrees. I think he believes there's a better strategy, which I think is what all GTO players also believe. But you can't say that he learned to exploit it and not suggest that he didn't learn what it was in the first place, right? Like that doesn't mean he sat down and learned every single line, but in order to learn how to exploit GTO, by definition, you kind of already need to know what it is. And I would say that that's literally what I'm suggesting anyway. I mean, I am quite literally suggesting that you should learn GTO in order to learn how to play better than GTO. Yeah, I know, but like that's what I'm saying as well. And like I don't know Charlie personally. I think that Charlie is a very, very good poker player, and I understand why he's saying fuck GTO, but I can also tell you that he's saying fuck GTO because people are misinformed in the purpose of GTO, right? And also, in order for him to say, I know what these GTO bums are going to do, if he knows what they're going to do, then he obviously knows what the GTO is, and then he's exploiting that. That's exactly the purpose of it. But I don't know. There's a lot of half truths in there as well, because yeah, exactly. He still believes you want to learn it because there is something to be learned. But there are so many situations, especially if he's doing like live cash coverage and stuff like that. I mean, yeah, you can throw most of it out the window because it just doesn't apply. But that's kind of also not true at the same time. Kind of like, this is the point I'm trying to get across to everybody, is everyone seems to think if you learn GTO, then you've decided that this is the best possible way that you can play. And once you're like a follower of the Church of GTO, this is like holy to you, and there's no way that you can't, like, you have to follow the rules. This is your holy Bible. That's just not the case at all. Like you can get a solver out, and you could have Charlie say, hey, here's the situation, here's the setup, what does GTO say? And then the GTO will say, oh, you're probably supposed to call this river at whatever frequency, blah, 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 blah. And then Charlie will go, yeah, but that's stupid because this guy never plays kings like this, and he never plays Jack 10 like this, and you go, okay, fine. If you go far enough back in the tree and you node lock all of the decision points that Charlie is discussing, then eventually the output is going to look a lot like what Charlie's exploit strategy is supposed to be, because we've actually gone back and adjusted for the fact that most people are not going to be playing according to GTO, and therefore the best GTO doesn't resemble the output of a generic default GTO output. Because that assumes everyone's playing the correct strategy pre-flop, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so let's take a look at today. All right, so just literally nothing going on here. Clearly not making very, very many mistakes in a pre-flop or, non-showdown sense. Just not winning anything at showdown. It's like 2,500 chips. No good. Yeah. All right, so let's take a look at this here. Yeah, again, I simply do not understand how our blue line can be this flat. I mean, historically speaking, let's go back to the merge. This was the start of the merge. Take off the $10 buy-in bet. So at some point, I mean, this is pretty much from the start of the year. You guys can see here. So this was our $10 challenge. This was since PokerStars merge spinning goes. You have some flatness there for sure. As soon as you actually start winning at showdown, you're obviously going to win more overall because they're obviously big pots and stuff. This is pretty much the start of our year here. And we are just flatlining in this department. We just can't win anything at showdown, apparently. Even though the rest of our game seems to have improved pretty drastically. Anyway, just variance. Let's do some review. Oh, okay. Actually, let's close PokerStars. Okay, PokerStars now closed. Let's go ahead and do the review session. So we are blind v blind, and we're shoving 20 big blinds here. So just for speed, we're gonna do some GTO whizzing here. I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that almost all of the hands we have marked are gonna be very good. I mean, this is just 100% push, right? So again, I feel like the last 3, 4, 5 review sessions are just us marking hands that we're playing perfectly, that we know are right, but we just feel like something else has got to change. This one is actually going to be wrong, I think. I misread the number of big blinds that we had. I thought we were much shorter than this in play. Ended up shoving Jack. So Jack 7 you can shove here. Jack 6 might be a fold. Let's double check here, though. This one is actually almost definitely not correct. Yeah, so Jack 7, but not Jack 6, I think is it. Yeah, there it is. Yep. Boom, boom, boom. Nailed it. So just on second look, I kind of knew that was too wide. That's why we marked that one, but it was I didn't think we were that deep. Ace 5, 13 big blinds all in. Oh, sorry, guys. Perfect play. We limp, they jam, we call. So against this player specifically, I don't think we want to call this one as liberally. I'm almost positive this is a GTO limp call. However, against the unknown player, we want to do this a little bit less. It's probably not a big enough reason to not, though. These hands just end up having so much equity. The reason why I called specifically against the unknown in this pot is because he seemed to be very aggressively pushing. So I think we will catch more air in his range. So actually, this is probably fine. It's gonna be perfect anyway. Yeah, it's spot on, correct. So limp call jam, and here we are going to call. Okay, so this basically starts pretty standard, right? He opens for 2 and a bet. We call. On this board, facing the 1/4 bet, we have the backdoor straight draw, backdoor flush draw combo. I'm pretty sure we have to float here every time. The other component to having a king on this board specifically is our opponents will have fewer king, jack, king, queen. What was all in with king 7 first hand? Sorry, mate. Bikav is asking about something here. Okay. King set. Okay, sorry guys. Let me take you through this one. So it was a steal. Sorry, I'm just responding to a question in chat on YouTube here. King 7. All right, so we got a raise and a call. So my assumption is that we need to float with the king of diamonds here, kind of no matter what. Plus, I mean, we have a high card, right? So our opponents will have steals that we have beat anyway. Once we arrive here, we are going to start sort of semi-bluffing. Not semi-bluffing, just straight bluffing. Once we arrive here, I think this is where we might go a little bit off-piste, but let's take a look. Because there's probably a couple different things to consider with this spot. Okay, fair enough. So the flop is the one that I wanted to confirm the most here. I'm assuming that we just have a very important card on this board, and also we have a high card anyway, right? So if we start from the beginning here, 16, let's call this 16. Why are you being a weirdo? Let's just do 16, 16, 16, fold, raise, call. Bet 1.5, I guess. That's close enough, I suppose. And then big blind. King X. So we have King 7. Lots of folding, but with the King of Diamonds in particular. Yeah, so there you go. Bottom right here, you guys can see even King X with the 7 of diamonds still wants to float here. And obviously, this is in part to bluff. This is in part to whatever. After the fact, we arrive here and we bet 2 on the turn. Let's take a look at that. So we call. Turn was the queen of clubs. Our opponent checks. And then the kings that we have remaining here, the king 7s. Obviously, the king 7 with the 7 of diamonds is a much better bluff candidate than the king of diamonds, but it still exists. Yeah, having a bet here pretty often, sort of 2 or 3 big blinds seems fine. Let's say they do call. This is closest. They call. River is 10 of spades. The river is just very off-piste in general, I would say. Yeah, seems good. Seems like we're in the right vein here. It's obviously, there's a fair amount of deviation, so we don't want to put too much stock into that one, but we have the right idea. It's cool. All right, so Jack Trey, blind v blind jam. So this is a 6 big blind v blind encounter. Again, this is just math. Like the pre-flop behind this is kind of irrefutable. So this is another good example of the whole GTO conversation we were having. At these stack depths, playing a game like we're playing, a Chippy V game like Spin and Goes, the solve that we find here is so difficult to... It's basically what I'm saying is at some point, we can have a big conversation about GTO and exploit and like, you know, do I need to learn GTO and is it important and all this other stuff. I mean, look, there's a lot of issues. You go speak to the best poker players in the world, and I don't just mean the people that have won like really big hits. Like I'm talking about people that have been consistently playing high stakes poker for a very, very long time, and all of them will have done some work on GTO, at least if simply to learn, you know, the theory of the game, or at least because they feel like they want to know what their opponents are thinking, you know, which is a big component of it too. But at some point, especially in tournament poker, which Spin and Goes technically are, at some point there is just a set of pre-flop actions that you just want to follow all the time, and this is one of them, right? Like it might not be necessarily obvious to anyone that you're supposed to shove Jack 3 of hearts here, right? For a long time, we would assume that this is just not a very good hand, and we probably just don't want to be all in with it. But the mathematics behind spots like this are just incontrovertible. Like you can't. There's no argument for anything else, you know, when we're looking at this range, basically. So if we skip to the exact action, blind v blind, right? If you shove this range, you will make chips in this spot, right? Now, some of these spots are going to be lower EV. However, in a game of chip EV, any EV is enough to justify making the profitable play. And also, don't forget that the EV that is put here, right? If we do strategy plus EV, if you look at the EV of making some of these shoves, they might not seem very big, but this is the EV assuming that your opponent plays perfectly back to you as well. So if you are shoving the correct range here, you are guaranteed to make chips in the long run. However, your opponents can still make the incorrect calling ranges and therefore make this more profitable, and often that will be the case. So, you know, you're on stream and you shove 9-5 suited here or 9-6 suited here, and somebody, without fail, eventually somebody will go, this is all this GTO nonsense that I'm talking about. You just shouldn't be all in with a bad hand. If you're not all in with such shit hands, then you're just going to win more money and blah, blah, blah. And it's just completely impossible to argue against the math here. And these are the spots where I think very often GTO is particularly powerful, because there will often just be a way to play that is unbeatable. And very often it happens in these short stack situations. And this strategy is, you know, we just can't, as much as it pisses you off, it pisses me off because, you know, a lot, if you're running into big hands here all the time, you really feel like you're just like torching money, but the math is just there and we just need to like accept that that's the case basically. So this is an interesting one. This is another example where I think we probably just do take the push. Against the reg in particular, we probably just want to take this push more often than not. So we're at about 9.410 big blinds here. Let's just see if we can get close with the auto solve. Okay. Really that straightforward. Okay, again, these are the spots that cost us again here today. The best thing about this particular setup is like when we shove Jack 5 here, we can get called by worse. Like worse hands are supposed to call. A lot of suited connectors are supposed to call the jam here, where Jack 5 is actually just value jamming. One of the big components is that you're just not going to be dominated that often in this situation when you do get called, especially at the stack depth. And we are in exactly that position, so of course it just looks like garbage. 7-5, and you know what? This is like a spot that we were looking up earlier in the week. So we end up on the very shallow side of the game. Our opponent has 8.5 big blinds betting into 10, 7, 8. Now, last week I gave a speech about how I want to look at these spots more because my instincts tell me that even though we are probably supposed to defend most pairs on these boards, a lot of times on these kinds of textures at this specific sub 10 big blind stack, I think having a weak bottom pair actually puts us in a bit of a torch situation. When we looked up the spots where I was saying that that might be the case, we actually nailed all of them. Let me take a look at the solve because I still think that this might be good enough to call with, but I want to see if this pattern exists again. Okay, so we're starting to notice a pattern here that we definitely did not before. Because generally speaking, as a rule of thumb, if you are on the flop and you're facing a bet, you do not want to fold a pair. You know, generally speaking, we never fold a pair. We never fold a draw usually, depending on us, obviously depending on the bet size and stuff like that too. But generally speaking, when we're taught how to defend flops, we are not going to want to give up too often with any pair plus, right? But what we have, like, you know, my instincts have been telling me that these spots are just massively torched, and I think we're actually getting burned pretty bad post-flop. We should be getting away from bottom pairs with bad kickers more often at this very specific stack depth. So if we take a look at exactly what we're supposed to have on in these situations facing the bet, this is a limped pot as well, by the way. If we filter for bottom pair, third pair, there's actually a fair amount of 7x that wants to give up that doesn't have any backup. So the 6 has some more straight draws. You know, if you have a 7 and a 9, you've got a gut shot as well, obviously. Having a better 7, obviously, is King 7, Queen 7, Jack 7. Immediately, that's not just a better 7, as in, you know, your opponents will have weaker 7x, but you also have a very clear way to improve into 2 pair that's quite powerful. So this is something that is occurring a lot more, and since we're playing the merge player pool, having these weak bottom pairs against players that probably are very prone to under c-bet on these kinds of boards anyway, and if they do, they probably overbluff turns as well. You know, taking these out probably could be a pretty significant game changer for us. And it seems like we've nailed another one here, which is really good to know because we're not kind of learning this one wrong. Okay, so here we have the ace 7. So this is a particularly annoying spot. This is actually somebody we don't recognize. So we're not thinking GTO. We're thinking, you know, just how do I exploit this player basically. We're defending ace 7. Now, if I remember correctly, at this stack depth, a lot of our weaker ace combos are still going to be calls. If we have a weaker ace, we can jam it more aggressively. So like ace tray, ace 4 is going to shove more often than ace 7, for example. We can confirm that bias. And as I said, once we arrive here, there's a lot of top pairs here. Sorry, we are not going to have top pair often at this stack depth when we flat because so many of our aces are going to be played aggressively. So once we get here, we have to basically assume our opponent is going to blast off against us. They bet, we call, the turn is a fucking king, fine, they jam. Again, I would argue that a lot of players don't play a king like this because they want to try and get more value from their hand. The problem that I have is, theoretically, I think our opponents are supposed to have a fair amount of bluffs here. And also, when your opponent overbet jams the turn like this, it's going to be just a random spade so often, and they're just going, I'm going to rep this ace, right? That's not me talking GTO. That's me talking like purely how I perceive that people play often. And I've seen a lot of poker in my time. So there we go. We call. He's got a king. Great. I want to take a look at a couple of the assumptions there. Now, I'm not gonna tell you that any of this is going to be GTO because I'm almost positive you're not supposed to jam the turn with any hands there, basically, apart from maybe Jack 10 with the Jack of Spades or something, or Queen 10 with the Queen of Spades. I don't know. That still seems like a weird pattern that I don't think exists from a GTO perspective anyway. So let's do it. Let's see what we can learn. And also, did we get the pre-flop right? No, okay, so pre-flop was fine. On the flop, they want us to raise. That really surprises me. I would say that even though that is unexpected here, I still think that this is exactly the kind of player that we want to be flatting more against. And I would say that generally speaking, even good players that we recognize are still going to over-represent the ace in these spots. So let's disregard this bit because actually I think this is completely fine. Yeah, and then once we get here, we just always call. It's like, it's just not even close. So yeah, there we are. All good. As I said, the entire purpose of this hand anyway was going to be exploit based anyway. But let's actually take a look at that. I want to see if I got that first bit right. So if we study the pre-flop here, if we study from here. So what did I say just now? I think that we probably flat A7, Ace8, and then we... A7, A6 is going to be flatted a bit more often, and then the weaker aces are 3-bet more frequently. So raise, fold, this is our range. Yeah, here we go. Ace3, Ace4, Ace5 are the jams, A6, A7 are the flats. It's not like we don't know this stuff, guys. Oh man, it's really frustrating to be so spot on with some of these ranges and we're still getting punished the way we are because it's fucking lame. Anyway, that was the last hand for review today, guys. And I'm going to leave it there for now. Let's leave it there. As you can see from this graph, guys, we are definitely doing some things right. I would say that at this point, it's very difficult for me to... I mean, there's absolutely no chance that we're winning 10 big blinds per 100 in the long term. We're just in the middle of a downswing. Unfortunately, we're in the kind of downswing that looks a little bit like the doldrums, like we're just lost at sea here. Like we're in the middle of a very, very clear distribution imbalance here, right? Like the card distribution means that for how many hands have we played this year? We've played 30,000 hands this year, and we are like on the way to break even. We've won 7,000 chips at Showdown. It's just obviously like an extended period of just not making particularly big hands. And then also, of course, not winning many hands at Showdown in general, right? We're under EV overall. And yeah, I mean, look, that is what it is. The game is not distributed very fairly for us right now, but we're doing a lot right, and we're actually playing relatively solid poker overall. So if we find ourselves in a spike like this, where we actually win some hands at Showdown, it's very, very, very easy for us to turn our 10 chips per game into a more respectable 18 over the course of a week, you know? 3 sessions where we just start making like flush draws, 3 sessions where we get some coolers going our direction, and we'll actually be where I think we are destined to be, but we're not there right now. And we've just had this very extended plateau right here, right? I mean, we've had that before. This looks like a similar stretch where we just didn't really make any chips at Showdown. And then we were rewarded like this. And then we ended up having a very respectable chip EV in the last challenge. So I don't know why this is a surprise to me. I don't know why I'm taking this one so personally, but it has really felt like a bit of a drag, despite the fact that our red line is actually much improved, and we're actually picking up the slack in other areas of our game which are not as prone to variance in that regard. So we have a lot to be proud of in that regard too, but it's boring, and I just want to start running like Jesus again. That'd be fun. Zintex. Oh, hello, Florin, by the way. Good to see you, buddy. Zintex says, to be honest, I find single tabling spins to be pure torture. I prefer 3+ tables and doing monthly reviews. So you focus less on bad beats and daily downswings, and which are just inevitable. Of course, Zintex, you're absolutely spot on correct, mate. I agree with everything you're saying, 100%. And when I am playing off stream, I do play more than one table, and I find that to be a lot more, you're in the flow of it, right? And you're not focusing as much on the downswings. 100% agree. For the sake of the content, you know, like why I do it the way I do, but there we go. Ed K says, is the idea of folding bottom pair because of how dynamic the board texture is, so calling a raise with deuces on a static board like King 7 deuce is more reasonable? That is correct, Tom. Sorry, not Tom. That is correct, Ed. Because also, in your example, the King 7 deuce is also what people would consider a very dry board, and they will just have more natural airwall bluffs. So on King 7 deuce, most players, even if they are inexperienced, they will go, I know that my opponent is going to struggle to call here unless he has a king or a 7, and therefore the bet is going to be just an insta bet with most of their range. So the deuce ends up just being a hand that is winning more often. The other problem with the dynamic board thing, Ed, is people who are studied will know that they probably don't want to be blasting into those boards without more of a hand. So like a pair and a straight draw, you know, decent second pair, a good top pair. Generally speaking, I would say people over c-bet. But even if that's the case, people that over c-bet will probably also over barrel turn, which means that you're in a bad spot when you have a weak second pair with little way to improve. And then also, you know, having an overcard to the board means that your two pairs can actually do better than the other two pairs that might be c-betting too. But also consider this, right? Aside from all that fancy shit that I just mentioned, like, you know, trying to overthink the spot too much, if you call with bottom pair and your opponent has a gut shot, they usually end up having at least one overcard with a gut shot, if not two, and then suddenly you're trying to avoid 6+4 cards, like 10 cards, right? Even though they don't really have much of a hand at all. So think about how your equity does in that situation, right? Even if they have a wider range than they're supposed to when they're betting, even if there's just semi-bluffing with like the worst part of their semi-bluff range, that's still like tons of equity that you have to fade, right? So what's the rule? If they have 10 outs on the flop against your bottom pair with no real improver, is that like 40% equity or something like that? What was the example that we looked at? Let me see if I can do a... Oh, I haven't done this for a while. No, I want... There's this old... It's still here after all these years. This might be the most used... I can't use it now because it's got coin poker all over it, but that Flash app that was there, I mean, obviously it wasn't coin before. Let me see if I can use this instead. Oh, this is annoying. This is a weird design. Let me see if I can find a little bit more. That is so funny, guys. I've been using this particular Hold'em odds calculator, you know, obviously unsponsored. Oh, you're killing me here, guys. What else can I... Actually, one sec. I can use this. There we go. There we go. So let's say that we are... Let's say that we have whatever it was, 5-7 off. And the board is like... let's say the flop is 7... hearts, 8 hearts, 10 clubs, and let's simplify it even more than that. Let's say that we have 7 of hearts, 8 of let's say it's a diamond. So the other, sorry, I'm missing one other component here. The other thing is when you are at 9 big blinds effective, the amount of wiggle room you have and ammunition that you have thereafter becomes very different. So it's probably the case that you almost never want to fold a bottom pair at all ever when you're much deeper, but at that stack depth, it becomes more sensitive because you just don't have ammunition to bluff on later streets anyway if you want to. And then let's say that your opponent has like literally like ace 9 or like a king 9, sure. Right? Not suited, king 9 off. If you evaluate these, yeah, I mean, look at this. So middle position 3, that's the king 9 off, ends up having about 49.7 equity. That's obviously with the overcards and all the extra stuff as well, but you can see how much equity these random hands do end up having. Let's say it's not even as strong as that. Let's say that it's like a 9. Let's say that they have 9 deuce off. That's still 41% equity. That's just the bare overcard. That's still the bare overcard and the gut shot. Oh, sorry, this is up and down. I'm doing this wrong. Sorry, guys. Let's make this a jack instead. Here we go. And then let's give him the king 9 off again. Yeah, so pretty close to 40% equity. That was my initial estimation, the 2 overcards in the gutter ball. But this is the kind of the problem that we encounter is you don't really know where you're at. Your opponent can bluff very aggressively and you don't have many answers to the turn. And we're running out of chips because we're at like 9 big blinds effective. But you can see kind of when you start to think about it like this, it's just a really negative free roll interpretation. Now let's say that instead we have 7-9. We suddenly end up having the same gut shot as our opponents with the pair. So we're at 62% right now. And then suddenly we have 76% if we start to include the more of the bottom pairs that we were discussing just a moment ago. And you can see like how much better that is just from an equity perspective, but also from a playability perspective, right? If you think your opponent is capable of bluffing, calling down with a pair and a gut shot feels way better than calling down with a pair with a weak kicker and no extra equity, right? So yeah, story checks out. Thank you, Equilab. GBR says the rule is if you have 10 outs on the flop, you better have an 8 and a large cheese sandwich. Accurate. He's nailed it. Okay, sweet guys. So I'm going to clock off for today. And I'll see you guys tomorrow from 2 p.m. UK onwards as per usual. Tomorrow we will definitely play more poker, I would say. I am going to try and get through some more volume off stream. And hopefully we'll get out of the downswing soon because it's been kind of lame. But until then, I'll sign off for now, guys. Enjoy the rest of your evening. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.